Hello everyone, please welcome to this Lactalis Ingredients webinar in which we will see how to provide the right nutrition for optimal infant growth. I'm Elodie Macariou, Senior Product Manager at Lactalis Ingredients.
And I'm Mathilde Gerville, Nutrition Scientist working at Lactalis Research and Development.
Before getting to the heart of the matter, just a quick word about Lactalis Ingredients. We are a global producer of whey and milk ingredients, and our headquarters is located in the west of France. With our 1,500 employees and our 18 production sites, we are able to be active in more than 100 countries. So it is well established that nutrition during the first 1,000 days of life can have major effects on growth and development. In this presentation, we will review the literature on how to provide adequate nutrition for optimal infant growth. But first, I'm going to do a quick update on the infant milk formula market dynamic and the latest developments and emerging trends. The infant milk formula market is growing but facing challenges. We estimate the infant formula milk market to be around $50 billion, and it is expected to reach more than $100 billion in the next few years. The largest market for infant milk formula is Asia Pacific, but the fastest growth is in North America. There are different drivers, the first one being the rise of the middle class. The speed of growth of the middle class has increased considerably. After reaching the first 1 billion at the end of the 80s, the middle class took more than 20 years to add another 1 billion, but around just 8 years to add the last 1.6 billion. Looking ahead, the growth of the middle class shows no signs of stopping. Indeed, the latest estimates place the total population of the middle class at around 5.2 billion in 2030, which is around 1.6 billion more than today, which will represent some 2/3 of the world's population. This rise in purchasing power in developing countries has led to an increase in the demand for infant milk. The second driver is the increase in the number of working mothers, which has led to an increase in the demand for baby milk because of its convenience and ease of use. In the majority of countries across all income levels, the participation of women in labor markets is today higher than several decades ago. And these women return faster to work after having a child. As an example, in France, 80% of mothers with one child returned to work after 1 year and over 95% after 5 years. This often means shorter breastfeeding times and therefore the use of infant formula. However, this dynamic market is facing challenges with the declining birth rate. Aging up for older babies is an opportunity. Indeed, with falling number of births, baby food and milk players will find new ways to ensure their products stay nutritionally relevant for older babies. The focus on older babies or toddlers will open up new avenues of growth for baby food and milk companies. I would now like to take a look at the latest developments and emerging trends. The first trend that we can observe on the market is the need to build trust in infant nutrition. Parents remain vigilant about the quality of baby food and milk. They worry about the short and long-term health implications of substandard food and milk on their babies. And in Germany, 65% of parents are worried that some baby food and drink products might contain harmful substances. Parents want assurances on food safety. Therefore, it drives the demand for infant milk formula with natural claims. And indeed, the share of infant formula launches with a natural claim has increased over the last 5 years. Natural claims include organic and GMO-free claims, no additives or preservative claims, as well as free from artificial colorings and flavoring claims. Growth has largely been spearheaded by an increase in no additives, preservatives claims, while most other natural claims have stagnated. And though organic baby milk and food is sought, parents don't know which children's food and drinks are truly natural. Alleviating consumer confusion around what constitutes a natural product can be addressed by brands by not only indicating natural or organic claims, but describing on pack what this means. Therefore, to further build this trust, producers need to ensure transparent sourcing. In Italy, 90% of parents say that knowing more about how baby food and drink are made would make them trust the products more. The second trend that we can observe on the market is sustainability. The share of environmental claims in the infant milk formula category has grown these last 5 years. Consumers are becoming increasingly concerned about the environmental impact of food packaging and food waste, and they expect companies to do more to tackle these problems. These concerns fuel the demand for sustainable baby meals, and this is especially pertinent in the baby food category as parents are acutely aware that if left unaddressed, the impact will be felt more dramatically by future generations, meaning by their children. Eco-friendly packaging claims have been the pillar of sustainable messaging in baby milk and food, and while it is important for consumers, they are pivoting towards brands that are taking more meaningful steps to address the climate crisis. These measures range from renewable energy sourcing to low food miles and carbon neutral production. And as an example, in UK, 27% of parents with children aged less than 4 years old say they would pay more for sustainably produced baby food and drink. The latest trend I will discuss today is providing superior nutrition for optimal growth. In the US, 44% of parents of children under 3 are concerned about the functional benefits in baby food. In fact, it is the third most important purchasing factor. It can be seen that the share of infant formulas with functional claims has increased over the last 5 years. In particular, there has been an increase in the share of claims relating to the nervous and cognitive systems, as well as the immune system. In the following slides, we will review some of these functional benefits and the dairy ingredients that may be associated with them. In terms of brain and nervous system benefits, the main markets when speaking about launches are Vietnam, the US, and Thailand. Some dairy ingredients associated to these claims are milk fat globule membrane and some proteins like alpha-lactalbumin, which comes from whey proteins. And we can also find some amino acids like tryptophan. Now, regarding immune system benefits, the main markets in terms of launch are still Vietnam and the US, and in the third place is France. Some of the products launched with this claim contain lactoferrin. And regarding digestive health claims, the main markets are Vietnam, China, and the US. Some dairy ingredients are associated with digestive health claims, such as prebiotics, like fructo-oligosaccharides and galacto-oligosaccharides. Human milk oligosaccharides and, in a more confidential way, alpha-lactalbumin can also be associated with digestive health claims. In the second part of this presentation, my colleague Mathilde will talk in more detail about some of the ingredients I have just mentioned. To conclude on this last trend, parents are concerned about the risk of obesity and want products that help to prevent overnutrition. In the UK, 35% of parents agree it can be hard to know if their child is a healthy body weight. In the future, the food industry may be expected to play a greater role in preventing the onset of overweight and obesity in infants. And on this matter, parents are more specifically concerned about added sugar, which can drive growth in high lactose formulas. Lactose is the primary carbohydrate in breast milk, and so is a much more natural fit with infant formulas than other carbohydrates like white sugar or glucose syrup. In EU, regulations permit the statement lactose only to be made on infant formula and follow-on formula, provided that lactose is the only carbohydrate present in the product. And in China, the new standards highlight the importance of lactose in infant milk formula, as requirements on lactose content have been added for stage 2 and stage 3 baby milk derivatives. Along with the increase in lactose use, 100% lactose baby formula launches are growing. For other added sugars, parents are concerned about the risk of dental decay, obesity, and taste development.
Thanks Elodie, for this nice first part on the infant formula market and trends. And I will keep going by providing some insights on nutrition and science, telling you how to provide the right nutrition for an optimal growth. First of all, even if probably everyone knows it, it's important to say it again. Human milk is and will always be the gold standard for infant nutrition. And why that? Because breastfeeding has many health benefits for the baby, such as an improvement of the immune system, a reduction of the risk of infection or the risk of obesity. But besides the benefits for the infant, breastfeeding exerts also benefits for the mom, with a decrease in the risk of cancer and, more importantly, breast cancer and ovarian cancer, but can also reduce the risk of postpartum depression, for instance. And because of all these benefits, the World Health Organization recommends that every child should be breastfed within the first hour of birth and be exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months of life. Trying to understand why human milk is the best, it's easily when looking at the nutritional composition. And here there is a table that represents the composition of breast milk compared to infant formula. And we can easily see that breast milk has a really more complex and varied composition than infant formula, which makes it the gold standard. So to provide the right nutrition for optimal growth, we should start with the human milk composition and compare it with the nutritional needs of the baby. And finally, in this presentation, we will see how infant formula can adapt the best to try to fit both nutritional needs and human milk composition. And in here, we will focus mainly on micronutrients. Let's start with the protein composition. Human milk contains approximately 1.5% of protein, but this level varies a lot during lactation, as shown just right here in the graph. During the first month of lactation, the level of protein starts around 1.7 gram per 100 kcal in a colostrum mainly, and then decrease gradually to reach 1.3, 1.5 gram of protein per 100 kcal after 2 months. And then it's quite stable during the rest of the lactation. The protein of human milk, we just saw the level of protein in human milk, but who are the protein? There is 2 types of protein in human milk, the whey protein for 73% and the casein for 27%. Within the whey protein, the major one is the alpha-lactalbumin for 27%, then lactoferrin for 18%, and then immunoglobulin, lysozyme, and albumin. Within the casein, the human milk contains beta, alpha, and kappa casein. Protein are essential for growth, of course, since they are the building blocks of all the cells of the body, but proteins can have also other bioactive functions that are very essential as well. And for instance, alpha-lactalbumin, that represents, as I said, 27% of breast milk protein, which is about 2 to 3 milligrams of alpha-lactalbumin per ml of breast milk. And besides being a protein rich in essential amino acids, alpha-lactalbumin has also the ability to prevent infection and exert antimicrobial function. Lactoferrin, a whey protein that has a high concentration in colostrum, has shown many benefits in gut physiology. Like alpha-lactalbumin, lactoferrin exerts also bacteriostatic and bactericide effects, and is also able to modulate beneficially the gut microbiota. Thirdly, immunoglobulin that represents 10% of breast milk protein, the major one being the immunoglobulin A, are essential for the transmission of maternal immunity. Finally, there are also minor proteins that do not represent a big quantity in breast milk, but exert important functions. Enzymes such as amylase and lipase that help the baby to digest breast milk, but also growth factors that are also essential for intestinal development, for instance. To determine the protein nutritional need, we use the original composition of breast milk. We take the quantity of protein in breast milk, depending on the age of the infant, and we multiply it with the quantity of breast milk that should be consumed per day by the infant. And the result gives us the protein nutritional needs per day, as you can see just right here. It depends, of course, of the age. During the first months of life, the infant is growing particularly fast, and the greatest growing of its life relatively to its body mass, actually. The speed of growth induces a relative high need in nitrogen and protein, and faster the growth is, higher the requirements are. So with the life spending, you see a decrease in the protein requirements. To ensure these nutritional requirements when breastfeeding is not possible, infant formula are used. And thanks to scientific research done on infant nutrition, infant formula composition has evolved a lot, in particular in protein composition. Few decades ago, to achieve amino acid requirements, infant formula should have a high protein quantity, approximately around 3.3 to 4 grams per 100 kcal. But thanks to increased knowledge in infant formula formulation and ingredient, we are now able to reduce protein quantity with adequate amino acid requirement. So the composition is getting closer and closer to that of breast milk. That's in terms of quantity, but what for the quality? We are aiming to have the same amino acid profile than human milk, or at least the closest one. And also, if possible, to have bioactive protein, because as we just discussed, they have plenty of beneficial function for the health of the newborn. And to help you formulate with a low protein content, the use of Prolacta might be a good tool. Prolacta is a soluble milk protein with 100% pure origin from milk. It is manufactured in France, where there is a privileged mode of production with the weather permitted year-round to pasture. Prolacta is minimally processed, and thanks to that, its native state is preserved. Thanks to this slow process, Prolacta has a unique composition, plus 40% of tryptophan and plus 40% of alpha-lactalbumin compared to a standard whey. Prolacta is rich in immunoglobulin, lactoferrin, and alpha-lactalbumin. If we go in more detail, when trying to reach a reduced protein content in infant formula formulation, the first limiting amino acid becomes the tryptophan. And here is a representation of the amino acid profile expressed in percentage of human milk amino acid composition. Human milk being at 100% for all the amino acids, here in gold, and a Prolacta-based infant formula amino acid profile in blue. As I told you, and as you can see in the graph, the limiting amino acid is the tryptophan. And thanks to its 40% higher tryptophan content, Prolacta is a way to increase the proportion of tryptophan in infant formula, and therefore to reduce the proportion of other amino acids, leading to a closer amino acid pattern compared to human milk, and a reduced protein content. As you can see in the graph, the amino acid profile is quite close to that of breast milk. And moreover, Prolacta also brings immunoglobulin and lactoferrin that are important bioactive protein. Let's keep going with the lipids. Human milk contains 4% of lipids, but its composition is highly variable depending on many environmental factors, such as diet, for instance. Lipids are the major contributor of energy intake in breast milk. It is composed of 3 different types of lipids: the triglyceride, that represent 45% of total human milk lipids, phospholipids, such as phospholipids and ceramides, that represent about 1% of total human milk lipids, and finally cholesterol, that represent 0.5% of total milk lipids. What about the lipid nutritional needs? The needs as for protein evolves with ages, starting at 45 to 50% of energy intake from lipids in the first month of life, and then gradually decrease to reach adult needs at 30 to 35% of energy intake from lipids. However, infant and toddler have specific needs in essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, as shown here. I will not go through all the numbers, but I just want to point out that 2 essential fatty acids, the docosahexaenoic acid, the DHA, and arachidonic acid, their needs are really essential for the first 6 months. So for infant formula formulation, it's important to keep in mind these nutritional needs, in particular in essential fatty acids. And to finish on micronutrients, let's go with the carbohydrates. The carbohydrate represents 7% of the total human milk composition, and the main carbohydrate is lactose that contributes to 40% of the total energy. As the major carbohydrate in human milk, lactose exerts many health benefits. First of all, when lactose is hydrolyzed, it gives galactose and glucose. And galactose is highly important for infants since it's the major fuel of our brain, so essential for brain development. Secondly, glucose derived from lactose is an important source of energy for growth. And when lactose is not fully digested in the small intestine, it can reach the large intestine, when lactose will be fermented by the colonic gut microbiota, helping the gut microbiota maturation by increasing the number of bifidobacteria that are beneficial bacteria for health. More important for toddler, lactose exhibits a low glycemic index compared to other disaccharides, such as fructose, and is also the less carcinogenic sugar with the lowest sweet taste. Important for kids to not habituate them to the sweet taste. So for infant formula formulation, no question to ask about carbohydrate. They all should come from lactose. In Lactalis ingredient, we have a product that is a source of lactose and protein, which is the Lactodem 90. Lactodem 90 is a range of 50 to 90% demineralized whey powder dedicated to infant nutrition. It is obtained thanks to an ion exchange and electrodialysis process, allowing to reach a constant mineral content lower than 1%. Its microbiological characteristics allow it to be used in wet mix and dry mix for the formulation of infant milks from the first age to growing milk. Composed of 80% lactose, 12% of protein, and thanks to a constant mineral profile, Lactodem 90 brings flexibility to infant formula formulator. It is produced in Verdun, France, that benefits from more 30 years of expertise in demineralization and drying.
Well, thank you, Mathilde, for the presentation. Now, if you would like more information, please visit our website or send an email to the address noted on the slide. We will now take the time to answer some of your questions, so do not hesitate to ask your questions. We may not have the time to answer them all, but we'll be sure to get back to you after the webinar. So I think we have our first question, Mathilde, regarding the formulation with Prolacta. What is the lowest protein level you can reach by adding Prolacta?
So thanks for the question. When you want to lower the protein content in infant formula, as I told you, the limiting amino acid is tryptophan. And thanks to the richness of Prolacta in tryptophan, we are able to reach 13.8 grams of protein per liter, compared to about 15 grams of protein per liter with a standard whey protein concentrate.
Okay, thank you, Mathilde, for this explanation. This time we have another question regarding sugars in breast milk. Are there any sugars other than lactose in breast milk?
Thanks for the question. So talking about really sugar, there is only lactose, but you can find other molecules that contains multiple sugars, such as galacto-oligosaccharide, but also human milk oligosaccharide. So it's not really sugar, but it's a multiple sugar in a molecule.
And we have another question. What is your opinion on the addition of choline nucleotides in infant formula?
Thanks for the question. So yes, I didn't have the time to go through all the nutrients in human milk and infant formula. So From my point of view, choline is really essential for cognition, so I would recommend to add it in both first and second stages. And by the way, I think it's mandatory in most of the regulation for at least the first stage. And regarding nucleotide, it's totally safe to add them because it has been done for many years. And there is some safety study showing that it's safe. But studies showing benefits are really old and not really convincing. So I would not specifically recommend to add nucleotide in infant formula, even though it's totally safe to have some.
And now a new question on formulation. Can we formulate to be on the same proteins level as breast milk from a regulatory point of view?
So thanks for the question. In most of the regulation, you have a minimum and a maximum for the protein level. However, as I know, at least for the European regulation, you can be lower than the minimum if you show in a clinical trial that your product is safe and well tolerated, and more importantly, that the growth of the baby is satisfying. But for the other regulation, I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Mathilde. We have two questions regarding our Prolacta soluble milk protein. What is the chemical index of Prolacta, and what are the rate of alpha-lactalbumin in Prolacta?
Thanks. Easy question for me. So Prolacta reaches 116 in a chemical index, which is higher than whey or total milk protein. And about the rate of alpha-lactalbumin, Prolacta contains 16% of alpha.
So I think that we have the time for last question. Can you share your opinion on the studies that showed children obesity is caused of the high protein level in infant formulas?
So this one is not that easy than the last one. And there is interventional and observational studies published 6 to 7 years ago showing that high protein content in infant formula, which was about 2 grams of protein per 100 ml, lead to higher risk of obesity and overweight during childhood. However, the major bias of this study is the level of protein, which is really high and disconnected from the market now. So the new study published recently are not that straightforward on the conclusion. So I couldn't really have a clear conclusion, and I think we need further studies with a long term to have a real conclusion on that.
Well, thank you, Mathilde, for your answers. That's all the time we have for today. It is the end of the Q&A session. But if we weren't able to answer your question, we'll aim to follow up with you directly after the webinar. And thank you everyone for listening, and please feel free to contact us to the address on the last slide of our presentation, and we will be happy to come back to you. Once again, thank you and have a nice day.